Hi, I'm Tim Benedict, and this is my presentation on my classroom management plan. I'm just going to dive right in because there's a lot we're going to have to cover in a short amount of time. So that's some of the stuff. So basically, just the general importance of classroom management plan. We know we need instruction and learning to be efficient, but we also need the community um, to be safe, inclusive, practice, empathy and compassion within there. And the students need to do that while also being engaged and on task. The classroom has to be a motivated place. And when we practice those character traits and those skills within a classroom of other kids, we need to model and teach accountability. And that comes with the choice that they get. But that's something we have to do ourselves and model that for the kids, and they have to do it for each other. And this means students don't really need incessant redirection from authority figures to exhibit expected behaviors. They need to own and display independently those behaviors through guidance and practice. They need to be shown it and they need an opportunity to practice. And I like this quote: a healthy sense of self includes a strong sense of community. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind when we're thinking about a classroom. So just want to present my plan in the context of what my classroom's going to look like next year, because I think that's the best way I can do this. I will be co-teaching at a charter school in second grade. Um, it's a class of anywhere from 30 to 32 students. It is diverse by design, and that's kind of part of EL education. Our school follows is an expeditionary learning education school. So they strive for equitable classrooms with instruction that centers around character building, experiential learning, with a real focus on producing a high quality product after a cycle. And this is in collaboration with not only your ELA and math blocks, but your expedition block, which is an amalgamation of history, social justice, and science, but also with the arts too. And for us teachers, EL is very prominent and emphatic on providing a lot of professional development through all aspects of teaching and community building, which is great. So just in the idea of our ELA and math blocks, we do rotational centers in order to differentiate and to provide for all students. And on this next slide is kind of how we break it down, at least in my classroom now that I found successful. Um, there's six groups of about five or more or less students, depending on differentiated grouping that is based on ability and progress. Um, Currently, we have a teacher aide that is me in my class that circulates to assist independent rotations and the technology rotations, whether it be iReady and Epic. I'm not sure if we're going to have a TA next year, depending on just where the budget goes. But anyways, there we use nonverbal cues such as a chime to signal transitions, and generally the duration of each rotation is increased depending on stamina ability, especially in the independent parts. Um, and I really like to reinforce, and we do at our school, that a productive classroom is not necessarily silent. Um, so as you can see, they rotate through these in any ways, and we keep it predictable every day, so kids know their signs. We tend to keep a timer, but we try not to deviate too much from rotation to keep it consistent and predictable. And we like to use a lot of movement. I want to use a lot of movement in these kind of blocks. Um, some of the things that we have already done that I want to expand on and just keep using: blending hills for decoding words, infinity patterns where students are moving around the classroom in an infinity pattern while reciting and reading CVC words, high frequency words, um, practicing phonemic awareness. We use story boxes, which allow them to create stories using their imagination, believing that thinking helps us solve problems, think critically, practice new ideas in safe ways. Our school has a heavy focus on storytelling being a very strong aspect of learning history, but about yourself. So that's kind of how that looks. And then one thing that I think is crucial to mention is incorporating student choice. I really want to utilize this the best way I can because it helps foster independent critical thinkers. The language of choice goes far in describing and understanding the decisions students make. It allows them to think about how making good choices and how they take responsibility for them. But also when we get to restorative justice, when we make the wrong choices. Um, so choice increases ownership of behavior and work. Um, and while I choice is important, it is often more strategic and helpful when we place some limits on it, right? We're helping guiding them to the right choices by providing the right ones. So presenting options that meet students' developmental and academic needs and giving them your respectful trust to make the best choice. That's what it kind of means when we're strategic with giving our range of choices. So, but good decision making with our choices comes with practice. We can't build self-management skills if we're always told what to do. And I think that speaks to the reciprocity that is in this ideology. So we reinforce learning as collaborative and that there's a shared responsibility and role in the classroom community from teacher to student. So we at this grade and in our school, as far as I know, second grade, we're not assigning homework. Students often do not finish things. We give them opportunities later on to finish them. Most of the time, students do, but we don't necessitate homework. But sometimes families communicate that they want extra practice with their student. That is a delicate balance on parents pushing versus what is actually needed. So we don't assign it to everyone, but sometimes we do send extra work home when it feels necessary. That'll be an individual basis as far as I'm concerned. Um, but through the independent work that they do, we try to promote, and I really want to utilize a self-assessment method that when the students finish doing their independent rotation, let's say with practice, some kind of practice of what we were just learning, they have the responsibility to sort it into three bins based on their grasp of it or the perceived confidence with it. So from I don't have this at all, and I need a lot of support to I kind of got it, need a little more practice to the range of no, I think I've really mastered this. It's another form of checks of understanding. Like we at the beginning of the lesson, we often allow them to reflect on their learning and then through these, and then with exit tickets or whether they're informal or something that's written, they provide a formative assessment for us. And it can allow students with some creativity to connect personally to their learning. You know, depending on the lesson and the amount of time in our schedule, you can go anywhere from a fist to five check, a thumb check, thumbs up, middle down, or often inquiring individually with students to see how they met their learning target that we addressed at the beginning of a block. So that's just some of the ways that we'll incorporate work. For the design, I totally believe in Garrett's quote of a cluttered, disorganized, and unattractive classroom communicates a message to students that you do not care about the environment, which causes them to question why they should. Um, this is a strong point for me. I think in my current classroom, there's a lot of disorganization where a lot of the learning materials are. It leads to hiccups, and that's when the most behavior arises in this like fumbling. So I think everything should be easily accessible and labeled for the students with their materials and their learning things so that we can promote that independence and responsibility, but also for the smoothness and efficiency of our work. And then I'll get to the visual soon, but I think there should always be the visuals and the decor should be welcoming, but it should grow with the class. I don't think you want to start with a lot of stuff on the walls. It could be overwhelming. I think we build as a community, but it should show student work. It should be representative and recognition of their work and who they are, but they should also serve as visual aids. And especially with word walls and for English language learners, there should be some representation of words in their language if we can, and that really promotes community. And and a kind of ownership of being a learner and teacher yourself. So, and giving your students a choice in the layout, I think that's kind of informed by seeing how it works. They can inform you on what they think would be best, but you're going to read that too. So I drew this based on the room that I know I'm going to have next year. We don't have desks, so we have tables, so there'll be five at there. We have windows all in front of this, the one end of the room, which is lovely, but it's hard to have a central area for a projector in that. So our morning meeting and carpeted work area will be in this corner where we have our projector and whiteboard and a rocking chair for read alouds. And then our two, what we call kidney tables, are kind of separate. So when small group instruction are going on, they're not interfering with each other. Our library is set in a deep closet, and we do have a reading room and an R&R zone that are cozy, comfy to promote um, close quarters for kids to get a little more cozy when they're reading, and then yeah, we'll see how it goes. This is how it's laid out. We also are planning to have a lot of plants along the windows. My co-teacher has found a lot of benefits with self-regulating kids with tending to the plants to kind of get back into a green zone. So this is how it stands um, in my head to start, but I'm sure it'll be addressed as we see how the class grows with the room. Next, just on some of the rules and routines, I'd like to start. I know there's a lot of examples out there. This is one I found. I do like starting the class year with a class promises where the students deem what they think is important to have a safe and responsible class, and that everyone agrees on them in the right language in a way that they understand that is not debatable. And then we set it, and then everyone signs it as almost a social contract. And I like that to connect with the rest of the classrooms in our school community. I like consistency in that way. Every morning we have morning meeting, and then at the end of the day, closing crew. This is where we read our greeting, we share a question and greet each other. It often involves a movement, but we also go over our classroom jobs there. Classroom jobs are a highlight for most kids and add responsibility, a willing responsibility they have in the class and to each other. And going over and always having a daily schedule visible, we need it to be consistent, predictable for students. For the most efficiency that we can achieve is through predictable and consistent scheduling. And I like to have something that moves down the schedule through the day so we remember. And then just for transitions, we try to use nonverbal transitions, music cues, whether a song they know that signals that or the chime, and often moving from a major activity to other. It's fun to have them mimic an animal's movement. It kind of focuses their energy on the movement more than wild frenzy to the next thing. But we need to explicitly teach and practice those things early on for it to be effective. And then just some extra things for students that might have extra needs that I've seen work and employed in my school that are used widespread. So I thought I'd highlight them. First and then boards, it's usually a visual display that has something a student prefers that will happen after they complete a test. That's less preferable. It's usually doing some instructional work to get some kind of break. It helps them build, you know, stamina with following directions and learning new skills. It motivates them to do activities they do not like and clarifies what they can do when they can do what they like. And it sets the foundation to complete multi-step directions, like building off that. And often a lot of we like to use timers to keep ourselves consistent, but for some of these students, knowing the amount of chunk of time they need to sit in a 10 can be helpful. And it's nice to give a precautionary signal before it ends so that the transition is smoother and that like they can deal with leaving the activity. Um, and I think that's important to highlight when we do that with some of these students. The activity should have clear endpoints with guidelines and goals, so they're not hung up on something that's open ended and maybe unfinished. And then token boards kind of are a step beyond. They're visual tools that reinforce positive behavior. I've seen them use like sticker boards and that for rotating. You assess what skills the student needs to work on, and every time they achieve it, they earn it for a break. So those are just some of the things that I've seen used in my school that will continue to be used on a widespread basis. I, I really think it depends on the student. I don't like the idea of the sticker board for every kid, but um, yeah. And then just for building relationships with your students, you have to, recognize that true appreciation is a feeling. It's not a strategy. You need to genuinely want to get to know your students. You got to ask about their interests. You got to their lives outside of school, their culture, anything that they show an interest in. And I'd like to believe that you need to do more listening than talking. You can ask the questions, but let them do the talking. I think that it's important with the learning aspect as well. Students like to think and learn about themselves, especially at the age that I'm, the second grade age. Like they're very self-centric, but they also like to talk about their peer relationships when they're trying to figure out their sense of belonging, where they belong, and incorporating instruction that, especially social emotional learning, that hits on those things that deal with themselves, often increases engagement. So just as you model instruction and learning, you must model the expectations you expect, right? So we have to model what we're asking. And as far as with parents at our school, emails preferred. Um, we do have a remind for each class that sends them updates, sometimes pictures of activities, some direct communication. But what I like about Remind is it's just direct communication with teachers. It doesn't really allow for, it doesn't get out of hand when it comes to all these families being on it with issues. And then we do send out a bi-weekly newsletter, and it's sent home in backpack mail, and that kind of reinforces some of the things that we send out and remind. It's just a physical copy, and just things that I've realized when dealing with difficult families and stuff. Sometimes you have to communicate early with them, especially when their child is displaying difficult behaviors. It's better to reach out with them early, and you want to share as many positives as you do the negatives. I think it's really helpful when you send home a note or a character building card, as we have that highlights something great they did. We need a bit. It's about positive reinforcement through and through. And you can ask those parents too, especially when it's hard to reach them about their kids' interests. And I think keeping it geared towards the future is always a way to lessen the intensity of the now. So we definitely practice restorative justice. That is through questioning and circles. Students' actions are framed as choices that impact relationships. We give them a chance to explain themselves and reflect on the impact of his or her actions. And this leads to accountability. They take actions that repair the harm that he or she has done. This is not just about a forced apology. They do meaningful work to repair the class community, but in this way, we're not ostracizing them from it. We're not removing them from it. We're keeping them involved, and we're teaching them the accountability and the ability to reflect on their decisions and their choice. And that's the big part. This is their choice, um, to make it better. I think everyone needs that opportunity. It kind of just it takes away from this dynamic of just punitive treatment throughout schooling. And the questions that we use should mitigate the dynamic of teachers are always accusing students of misbehavior. It can provide the framework for students to moderate their own discussions and conflict before returning to the teacher, right? So this allows them to get the skills and practice it, that a lot of these issues that turn out to be what we'll say tattletaling become more just something that they work out themselves, right? And we do this through asking questions individually, but we could set up like a circle mediation with the intercessor to let everyone speak out their words. So I think it, it's it's about the dialogue, and it's really helpful. It's something that we're trying to practice throughout our school. Other things, as I mentioned multiple times, we need to use positive reinforcement. We need to outweigh our negative or redirective statements that are in the deficit, and frame in the positive and state why we're giving encouragement. recognizing it and stating it back to them so they understand self-control strategies. That's whether that's breathing, taking a step away, reflecting on the why of other people, and not letting it get us, not letting it get us that angry. And when it comes to addressing this, we don't want to give all the attention to the misbehavior or punish the whole class for the student's misbehavior. That gives too much power to the student who's acting out and is realizing the reaction they're getting and feels already, like the odds are against them. And the punish with consequences in that they need to mask, they need to address the misbehavior and not be arbitrary. You don't attack a student's dignity, especially in front of the class. You pull them aside later on to talk to them. And you have to be firm and gentle, warm and reassuring, as in, despite the poor decision, it's okay. We're going to get past this. And I think a lot of times having the right body language and nonverbal signals communicate simple, respectful, positive messages without saying a word, right? And it also leads them to be aware of their own body language, and it aids the metacognitive steps towards independence. You got to eye contact does more for yelling than you could ever believe. And proximity, Kerwin states that for my age group of 6 to like pre-adolescents is 2 steps closer than arm length when you're addressing them. Sometimes it's just standing near them will lead them to fix their behavior. You don't have to use any words. And personally, for me, start fresh. We all need that. School can be very stressful on a day-to-day basis, and kids can have rough days. So can we. We need to accept them and appreciate them genuinely, because when our shields are up, students are defensive, and they're just trying to block off anything, and they're going to shut off. So we need to start fresh every day. And yeah, that was my plan. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.